Street Fighter can change the world. However, it's apparent that the vocal minority of fans I mentioned in my Gamergate video really don't want that to happen. So this one's for you guys, a video based on numbers. When I first looked at the Black Moons, I only had one question on my mind. How can Bison afford it? I mean, even with the money he made selling biochemical weapons and arms from his home of Mraganka, yes, that's the name of his island, guys, he couldn't possibly afford space exploration, could he? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. First, since Bison is a drug and arms lord, we need to find a real-life comparison that would be conceivably able to afford space technology. The obvious one to look at would be Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who is estimated to make about $1 billion annually from his illicit deals. Is it enough to finance something as large as a space program? Well, no. NASA's budget for the 2016 fiscal year is $19.6 billion. El Chapo has enough money to run an international crime syndicate, but not enough to conquer where no man has gone before. However, there was someone in real life who had the money to fund NASA nearly twice over, and is known as the biggest drug lord in history, Pablo Escobar. Adjusted for inflation, Escobar had a net worth of $30 billion. It was definitely a good thing he feared extradition to the United States, because we would all likely be seeing his mugshot on the moon's surface by now. He was a highly feared and highly dangerous man who committed mass atrocities against mankind, but unlike Bison, he really just strong-armed his way into the history books. And yes, he did use science, or at least his drug makers did, but space was the furthest thing from his mind. Compare this with Bison, who uses his empire to research new technology and perform human experimentation. His psychopower came from this type of technology, or the stealing of it anyway, and he knew that it was the best way to expand the limits of not just his empire, but his physical form as well. So now that we have a comparison to Bison in the real world, we need to calculate the real world math involved to find out just how much the Black Moons actually cost to build. If we look at one of the moons, we see it's a large spherical object that's much bigger than Careen's satellite, Red Spider Lily. So how big is it? Well, to calculate this, I had to do some research. Using Ryu and Delsum's first fight with Necalli as a reference, I was able to gauge a few things. First of all, while it's stated the fight takes place in India, the game doesn't say where. However, we can make an educated guess to where it's at based on Mahish's uniform. It is the official uniform of the Mumbai police, so we can safely say that the city they're in is Mumbai. Next, we have to find the coordinates of where Mumbai is on the map. Why? Well, there's a reason for this. The Black Moons themselves are also known as PSAs, or Psycho-Power Stratospheric Aircraft, which means they function in the Earth's stratosphere. If we can tell how far up the Black Moons are, we can begin to determine how big they actually are through this proportion equation. Basically, if you have two objects, you can tell their distance or size from your perspective as long as you have three of these factors. I'll go more into this later. Anyway, Mumbai's coordinates are 19.0760 degrees north, 72.8777 degrees east, which places it in the middle latitudes. The ceiling of the stratosphere changes depending on which latitude you're at, so without going too deeply into literal rocket science, I estimated that the stratospheric ceiling in Mumbai would be around 11.5 kilometers, or 1,150,000 centimeters. And before you say that it's possible the moon is lower, there's one thing that can crush that statement: gravity. The further away something is from Earth, the less force is exerted on it from Earth's gravitational pull. Things as big as the Black Moons would need to be high enough to be semi-free from Earth's pull to keep it from crashing down before Bison's plans could be fulfilled. And while this is what almost ended up happening in Street Fighter V story mode, the fact is Fawn manually forced the moons down. Plus, from a financial standpoint, it would cost less to keep the moons hovering using natural forces rather than having giant rockets do the work for them. Money may not be a factor for Bison, but it is finite. And this way he can spend more money doing experiments on his dolls than devising ways to keep a giant ball in space afloat. All that's left is to find the size of one of the Black Moons. Remember the equation from earlier? This is where we use it. However, we need a second object to determine the proportional sizes, but as it turns out, we have one: the Sun. Since the Black Moon is used to directly black out the Sun, we can use the Sun as the second object within Ryu's perspective to determine its diameter. The Sun's diameter is 864,576 miles across, or over 100 billion centimeters. The distance from the Earth to the Sun is 92,955,807 miles, or 1.5 times 10 to the 13th power centimeters. If we call the Black Moon X and the Sun Y, we can plug in our factors and find out the results. So, after crunching the numbers, I found that the diameter of one of the Black Moons is over 17,000 centimeters, or about 564 feet across. That's not that big, By comparison, the Palmolive building in my hometown of Chicago is about a foot taller. So the black moon in the story mode is just a floating Palmolive building? Not exactly. See, this is only the diameter of the black moon. What we're looking for is its volume. So, to determine the volume of the black moon, we use the equation V equals 4 over 3 pi r squared, where V is the volume of the black moon, pi is the number pi we all know and love, and r is the radius of the black moon. After entering the data one final time, the total size of one black moon is equal to 93,936,837 cubic feet. The biggest man-made object in human history, the International Space Station, clocks in at around 5,600,000 cubic feet. Bison's black moon is over 16 times bigger than the largest thing ever built by man. But we're not done yet. To calculate the cost of this object, we have to compare the black moon to a similar object where the cost has already been determined. A giant weaponized sphere with the power to outright destroy chunks of civilizations? It should sound familiar because the black moons are the miniature versions of the Death Star. Students at Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania determined that it would cost over $852 quadrillion to build the Death Star. With the Death Star itself being 32.5 quadrillion cubic feet, this measures out to the Death Star costing $26.22 per cubic foot to build. With this, we have the final piece of the puzzle to determine the total cost of the black moons. If we assume one black moon costs as much as the Death Star per cubic foot, then each black moon would cost a total of $2,463,023,866.14. But there are 7 moons in Street Fighter V story mode, so if we assume that all of the black moons are the same shape and size, the total cost for all 7 would be $17,241,167,063. If Bison made as much as Pablo Escobar, he would still be freaking loaded with cash. With the money left over, he could reside on a nice private island for the rest of his life, with girls catering to his every whim, a loyal butler who gives him whatever he wants, and people groveling at his feet loyal to everything he says. Oh wait, he already does. One final thought, and this is a shout out to Vexxed, who gave me some advice on how to make my videos better. I truly appreciate the kindness you gave me by answering my questions, so I felt the need to mention one of the YouTubers who are setting out to change the world through video games. In the meantime, I'm working on making higher quality videos, but I need more support and more feedback. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter so you don't miss out on the latest video. As for my next one, I'm going to return to the topic of Miss Perrine Kanzuki and expand on an idea that I've had for some time.